Implicit in what you're saying is that you're tracking on the, I say you, if you were sitting on the customer side and the finance side, you'd be tracking after the procurement process is done and it's whatever you bought is in place. You're actually following up then to make sure that it's delivering the value that was promised.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a purchase where you're not buying it based on the lowest price, right? If you're buying something based on a defined value or on a promised value, you'll be wanting to track to see if that value is delivered. But I think what's also often interesting to think about is when if someone's making a claim that they're going to grow revenue, and let's say revenue is up 50%. Well, there's probably a lot of people, including the SAMs in your own company, but a lot of different things that have happened to cause that impact. And so I think one of the challenges is often decide which thing that you did caused the impact. So had I not purchased the new CRM, would my revenue have been up 49% or only 30%? Or would it have maybe even been up 55%? Because of, for some reason, right? So that's the part that if you could, you'd want to be able to figure out if I'm not a partner of yours, what would your business look like without us? And if you can really make that contrast, I think that's something that drives a lot of value at your customer.
Right. Is it fair to say, following up on that it's more reliable from a finance perspective to look at things that are a cost savings versus a revenue gain?
If it's a cost saving that's directly related to that product, yes. If it's a cost savings around, let's say, efficiency of, people, right? That's a little bit more nebulous, right? Because there's a lot of ways that efficiency is being delivered.
Right.
But I think, as much as you can tie what you're doing to that product, I mean, if you could do an A/B testing, for example, so if you could have one sales team that's using your product, one sales team that's not using your product, and see how their revenues are growing, that's a great way to measure the difference and the impact of what you're able to deliver for that customer group. So sometimes you have to get creative and really, we think about it as really creating a hypothesis, and then you're trying to prove that hypothesis and structuring measurable goals and structuring the measurements that you need to be able to either prove or disprove that hypothesis of the benefit that you're getting.
Interesting. So, and it kind of gets me to a point, because we certainly want the SAMs to be proposing innovative solutions, often new. It could be to both companies. It could be something that's hot off the presses, so to speak, and you might be our first customer for something like that. Would it be good practice in that case to be honest about that, first of all, and to propose a pilot where you could and set it up to measure, to say, this is what we expect, this is what we project to be delivered, and we're going to do everything in our power, but let's measure it and be sure that what we're saying is true. And what are the benefits perhaps that we didn't anticipate, and what are maybe some negatives that we didn't foresee? Would you look favorably upon something like that if you were making that?
A pilot is a great way to test whether or not you're going to get the benefits or the cost savings or the revenue increase. I think most finance people are actually fairly adept at making assessments of things that we don't know exactly what the outcome would be, right? So, if you think of a company, you pick any company. If you looked at Boeing, for example, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and you were trying to project what would their revenue be in 2 years, I'm not sure you would have forecasted COVID. You probably wouldn't forecasted, planes being grounded, right? So there are a lot of uncertainties that you may have to put into different models that you would have. I think the more, the less risk there is in those outcomes, then the more value, or the greater, basically, the more benefit you will get rewarded for in the benefit. So if you have, in the benefit analysis, right? So if you have, you say you're going to deliver $1 million of benefit, and it's absolutely guaranteed. So you say to the customer, if we don't demonstrate we have $1 million of benefit, we'll write you a check for the difference. It's guaranteed. So the customer can bank on that. They know they have that. If you say that we're going to deliver you this benefit and it works 1 out of 10 times, then arguably that benefit would have about $100,000 worth of value. And so, you know, because that's sort of that's what the math tells you, right? And what's interesting is you know, when you think about that, right? So there are ways of measuring that and determining that. So if somebody else comes in and says, you know, I'll give you the 100,000 option, someone else says, I'll give you this guarantee, I'm going to take the one, even though the expected benefit is the same, I'm going to take the one that has less risk, right? So understanding the risk of your solution, the risk of obtaining the benefit that you are wanting to deliver is an important aspect.
Interesting. And would you say, just kind of generally, that risk factors into almost everything you're looking at from a financial perspective?
Yeah, 100%, right? So every calculation that you're making, you often use what we call a discount rate. And so that discount rate is higher depending on the risk that you have, right? So if you think of, you know, and something often people understand, you know, bonds, treasuries have lower interest rates, lower risk. High yield bonds, high risk debt have higher interest rates, higher risk. That's in essence that discount rate that people have factored into that.
So keeping that in mind, I hadn't really thought about this. So I guess a SAM, if they're talking about sort of a cost benefit approach, they should be thinking cost benefit and risks to you and how we'll mitigate those risks. That should be, if you will, a third leg of the stool to really make it stand up and be sturdy, a sturdy
Right.
proposition.
Yeah, you know, and I often, you know, when we do trading sessions, we often help SAMs really think about 4 aspects of cash flow, right? So help your customer get more cash from their existing business, right? Help them find new sources of cash, so new revenue opportunities, reduce the risk in the cash that they're receiving, right? So finding ways of reducing that risk, so it makes it more certain that their cash is available. And then the final one is really getting cash in quicker, right? So, you know, we often tell people, you know, it makes a lot of sense, right? But, you know, if you can deliver $1 today, that's worth more than $1 in 5 years, right? Every customer would rather have that $1 today than, you know, a year from now or 5 years from now. And so, you know, what we're doing is helping the SAMs as they're engaging with their customer and understanding their customer, understanding those sort of 4 tenets, and how do you ask great questions and understand your customer's business so that you're able to think with them how you can help them deliver around those 4 goals.